We're now going to move to British Columbia, so somewhat north of Arizona, and I think a little bit west. It's a beautiful part of the world, and I've known this gentleman for a long time. His name is Sriman Venu Gopala, and he lives in Sharanagati in British Columbia. But his background is he met the devotees a long time ago in 2001, and there's actually, he got Harinama Diksha the very same year from Sri Gurudeva, and he spent a lot of time at the Bangalore temple, I assume, with Sripad Bhaktivedanta Vaikanas Maharaj. So he would have eaten a lot of pizza. And he's very skilled at video editing. I've seen some of his skills, quite impressive. And he spent 20 years in India, actually almost 20 years. But he's now in the Vedic Eco Village in Sharanagati in British Columbia. And we're very lucky to welcome him tonight for offering Pushpanjali to Srila Gurudeva. Prabhu, are you, I think you're there.
Yes. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you really well, Prabhu. Beautiful. Are you
okay,
turn your camera
on? This is a really remote off-grid area, so we will be lucky if the audio works and the video would be pushing it. And I'll also spare you my dramatic visage.
What's that?
I'll spare you my rugged farming visage, my face.
Okay, that sounds exciting.
I want to frighten the devotees, you know?
All right,
so, okay, yeah, should I speak for about 15 minutes then? Is that,
you
is that
actually
about right?
have more, you have more like 30, but if you want to do 15, that's also fine.
Okay, well, I guess I'll just start and see how it goes.
Sure.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, and thank you to Karunamai from Canada who asked me to come on today as well. And it's good to see everybody on the call here. Yeah, so I'll start. Jnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyapane Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Narayanati Namine Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadadaye Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yes, so first of all, before beginning, I offer my obeisances to my beloved Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta, Nityalila Vishnu Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Astatar Sata Shishimad, Bhaktivedanta Narayana Gosvami Maharaj, and all our Rupanuga Guru Varga, and all the Vaishyas and Vaishnavis who've come here today. Yeah, so I'll just speak a bit about my own experience, as people do. I hope that's interesting and helpful for our devotees to hear. So yes, I'm in BC, Canada, as it's known, and there's a valley here, Sharanagati Valley. It's a off-grid farming community, and this is pretty much where I first met the devotees. So I was in Calgary, in Canada. I was going to art school, and a friend of mine, he was hitchhiking on the West Coast. He met a kind of crazy devotee that he thought I might be a good match with. And so this crazy devotee, he hitchhiked all the way through the Canadian winter to meet me in Canada and camped out in my home. I was renting there, and told me about Krishna. And I had never really heard of Krishna to speak of, or ISKCON or any of these things. But I thought, well, he's hitchhiked all the way across the country to tell me about Krishna, so I'll give him my ear. And he brought me out of Calgary to a devotee some of you may know. His name was Haridas Prabhu. He passed away not that long ago, who was a very, very generous person. That's really one of the things that struck me with the devotees as a whole, is such generous people. He said, you can stay in my house without paying anything for as long as you want. And I just ask that you read these books here. I'll feed you all the sandwiches and butter that you want. And just please read these books. You don't have to do any work. And I thought, well, I've just met the guy a few days ago, so it's quite an offer. I didn't stay there all that long eating his sandwiches and butter, but we actually, this devotee, this other devotee and I, we hitchhiked out here to Sharanagati Valley. And I met a disciple of Srila Prabhupada called Srila Dutidar Maharaj, that some of you from Canada at least may know. He's been to India, but maybe not so many of you will know him. But at that time, he was running a center here in the valley, informally called Swami Mills, because there was a big sawmill there that a lot of the homes around here were built with. And again, he was also so generous, and seeing him and his spiritual practices and waking up each morning and chanting and putting on this big program for whoever would want to come. You know, anybody could just come and stay and participate. I got a taste of what a temple is really in this remote area here, and how temple is such a generous place. It's a place that anyone can come and be taken care of and learn spiritual teachings. So from there, a group of us went to India. Actually, I should say before that, he told me about Srila Gurudeva. So he was a disciple, Dutidar Maharaj, he is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he was taking Shiksha from Srila Gurudeva. So he introduced me to both of them simultaneously. So my introduction wasn't exactly through ISKCON. I was never formally in ISKCON, but I did read many of these books of Srila Prabhupada and was very impressed with how he was speaking so straight to material society, and how he was giving such a straight critique of how things are these days, how things are being run, and giving this taste of this great civilization, this Vedic civilization, and these profound teachings that these sages within that civilization were and are practicing. And then Dutidar Maharaj, he said, and especially for the sweet touch, you can also read these books of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj. And when I read his books, it was very much, I remember him speaking about Gopal Kumar traveling to the different regions of the universe and being introduced to this cosmology and these gradations of devotion. And I remember Bhakti Rasayan, Srila Gurudeva, describing the moods of the cowherd boys and how they would sing to Krishna as he rested in the afternoon after cowherd grazing. And they'd massage his feet and put him in this soft, safe, ecstatic state of friendship, love, of Sakyabhav. And it wasn't long after that actually Kishori Mohan Prabhu and Sudevi Didi and Vishakha Didi was traveling. They were traveling together at the time. Aranya Maharaj, as he was then, they all came to town in this remote area at the same time, just a few days after I got here. So I got quite a dose early on. And just this impression of this world these people were living in, this international sangha, and also these teachings that they're swimming in. And yeah, all the devotees were so kind to me, really took me under their wing, and very, very personable, as well as these amazing teachings of tattva and this cosmic understanding, and learning about, reincarnation and personalism and impersonalism and history, a different understanding of history. It's also just the friendship of the devotees that's very important for me. And I could see, I hadn't met Srila Gurudeva, I could see, this person shining through them. They speak about this person often, and his influence, his kindness, his wisdom is shining through them. So after some time, an opportunity came to take initiation from him. So a few of us actually did that over the phone. We went up a logging road here. It is quite a remote area. And there's a signal from a certain place that would go between two hills over to a phone tower in a distant place. And we were able to speak to Srila Gurudeva when he was in England at the time and took initiation. I remember hearing his voice and getting the impression this is a very grave person, a very voluminous person, in the sense that there's a lot, he holds a lot, like a large vessel. This is a person who can hold many understandings and many relationships. And also a very humorous person as well, because he joked a little bit in the call also. And then before long, an opportunity came to go to India. So we went for Kartik. A number of us came from this side of the ocean. And this was Kartik, I think this was 2002. It was a year that Srila Gurudev didn't come for the beginning of Kartik. He was having some health problems, I think heart issues, and he was up in Delhi getting some treatment there. So he didn't come at the very beginning of Kartik. Kartik began without him, and this was my first Kartik. And, you know, for those of you who've been to Kartik and festivals in India, of course, I'd been to India before, but not in the midst of a spiritual festival like this. So it was quite amazing, this huge group pilgrimage. And again, the generosity of it all, this prasadam being given to everyone, just that people were just giving their lives in service, not wanting to gain anything by it. And this huge, generous festival, going to all these different holy places, hearing these amazing discussions about the Vrindavan that I couldn't see, about the Vrindavan that's also there, but not manifest, but through this katha, through this discussions, and coming from the previous acharyas, I was getting some glimpse into that Vrindavan. And I kept hearing, after the middle point in this month-long festival, we're going to go to Govardhan. And that name, Govardhan, sounded so resonant. I thought this, like hearing a bit about Govardhan ahead of time, about the different caves that Krishna's playing in, and the something of the pastime of Indra, touched on that, didn't hear that until later in the month, and so on. And Srila Gurudev, he spoke from Delhi over the phone in the PA system, the speaker system of Rup Sanatan Gaudiya. And he said, I'm there with you in spirit, all of you. And I'm very glad that this is going on. And he said, surely I will come for Govardhan. And I thought, I'll meet him and go to Govardhan as well. And sure enough, the Prakma party did travel to Govardhan after some time. We were camping out. At that time, the temple wasn't built, sort of camping out in the temple nearby, which also wasn't built. And it's very exciting. And after some days, Srila Gurudev said, the announcement came, he's going to come today. So a big kirtan party was outside this little guest house near the temple where he was going to stay. And we were running back and forth and doing kirtan for hours and hours. And he was later than expected, and later than that, and later than that. And till eventually someone spotted the vehicle and he was coming. And it's one of these, obviously a pretty significant moment for me to see him for the first time. And just the physical effect that seeing him had on me was quite overwhelming. Everyone fell and gave pranams, and I also, without even intending it exactly, I kind of fell and gave my pranams, and I found myself crying, but I didn't know why. And later on the next day, when I had a darshan with him, at that time he went inside fairly quickly. He was tired and going to rest, you know. But again, I started crying without knowing why. And I got the impression that this happened quite a lot for him because he didn't seem to think, oh, here's a grown man bursting into tears in front of me. How unusual. It was probably something that happened to him quite a lot. So he kind of reassured me, and just I was very glad to be in his presence. And my father, and actually the death of my biological father was part of what brought me to spiritual life in the first place, and the questions that evoked in me. And this was my second father, really, who would be my spiritual father to help guide me into spiritual life. So let's see how I'm doing for time. Not too bad. I'll go a little longer.
You're great for time, Venu. Great for time.
Okay.
And this is very beautiful. So just take your time.
Okay. So, yeah, and the shelter that Srila Gurudev gave me and gave others and gives others is so remarkable, because on one hand, he himself is a fully remarkable personality and full of love and caring and understanding and wisdom, and, you know, guiding those who wish it through their hearts. I felt a connection with him in my heart, especially since I took initiation on the phone in Canada. I felt this strong presence of connection with him, and I kind of felt like I'd known him before, which is probably something a lot of disciples have, something of that experience. Not that I knew, you know, he would look exactly like this or that kind of thing, but more that I'd had a sense of having spiritual guides before that I hadn't met, invisible guides, like guardian angels. And when I met him, I felt like, oh, this is one of those guides. This is one of the main ones. And now he's incarnated. He's speaking, and can ask him questions. And not only that, but from his side, it wasn't about him mainly. He was fully present in relationship with, again, those who wish to be in relationship with him and receive what he's giving. But he's bringing a whole sangha full of people and inspiring many different devotees to help me and answer my questions and be friends with me and help give a kind of structure in my life of daily spiritual practice and understandings, philosophical understandings, gradually, you know, coming into that kind of structure, just like a father would. A father makes sure that their children have a home, have food, have good education, gives that facility. And the father's sometimes there with the child, but the father's always making sure that the child has what they need. So I felt like that this whole sangha is Srila Gurudev's kindness. Not just to me, obviously, individually, but to everyone. But on a personal level, I felt, you know, I felt like it's a gift to me. And also, especially in Kartik, that first time, I remember hearing about all these different acharyas, because of course in Kartik there's many different appearance days and disappearance days of acharyas, like Srila Gaurkishore Babaji Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pragan Keshav Maharaj right at the beginning, and others. And Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Maharaj hadn't entered Nitya Leela at that time, but his disappearance also during Kartik. And Srila Trivakar Maharaj, I think, hadn't entered Nitya Leela at that time either. That was just shortly after I came. But sitting with the other devotees and hearing these glorifications of the different Vaishnavas, and also the Rays of the Harmonist magazine, which is full of articles by different Gaudiya acharyas, like Srila Bhakti-Daita Madhav Maharaj and others, and the other ones I mentioned, and more. So I very much felt like I was coming into like a great hall, a hallowed hall, where many great souls had spoken and had left their imprint, and that we could hear about all the great deeds that had been done in this place, to use a metaphor, invited into this assembly of saints. So that was very remarkable for me. And coming as I was from modern culture, which has lost so many elements of what a true culture is, such as learning how to face death, learning about life beyond death, learning about cosmology, the source of things, the relationship with God, coming from a background where so many gaps in modern culture that I was so much wanting, like to have those filled, to enter into a fuller culture. So he orchestrated that in my life to learn about those things and come into this great culture. And as time went on, I went back and forth a bit from West to India over the years and so on. But I did, as you said, Yashodananda Prabhu, I spent quite a bit of time in Bangalore, eating pizza, amongst other things. We did do other things as well, occasionally. But that was also under Srila Gurudev's umbrella. And Sripad Vaikanas Maharaj, yes, he was and is heading up the temple there, and he became like an uncle, a mentor and a friend, who under Srila Gurudev's auspices arranged that temple was a very healthy place for a young man to grow up. I was in my 20s at the time, but we keep on growing up, hopefully until we die and beyond. But I certainly have and had a lot of growing up to do, so that there was that structure to be in, and that camaraderie of other young men, and the company of elders like himself and like other seniors who would come and visit, and during the festivals, so as to come into a family, really, and having a chance to step forward and learn cooking and kirtan, and use some skills in graphics and video editing and so on to help with preaching there. We did a lot of book distribution and publication of books in South Indian languages, and some traveling and book distribution in kirtan in South India to some extent. So it was very edifying, very good way to grow up, I'd say. And I'll begin to wrap up here. Although I know I have more time, but I feel like what I have to say today is coming to a conclusion. And time went on, and Srila Gurudev departed, and of course for all of us that was a huge marker in our lives. And it's said that I remember reading Shri Guru and His Grace by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Maharaj, that after the Guru's departure, the test comes upon the disciples that what have you taken into your heart? How have you taken your Guru's teachings? It's easier when you're part of a wave, you know, like a dolphin on a wave, going with all the others. And it's happening at Kartik festival, Navadip festival, were so much like that. Srila Gurudeva would say, when you, just by attending and participating, you're doing all the 64 limbs of bhakti. You just go and try to do what other people are doing. But after Srila Gurudeva's departure, there's some time, opportunity for introspection is there, that I've taken all these things on board, and I profess things. I've preached to many other people. So what is it that's truly real for me? What of this have I really received? How do all these teachings, what is my relationship with them? And here I am again in Sharanagati Valley, pretty much where I began my sojourn in bhakti. And there's, in a different part of the valley, I'm in the south end now, I was in the north end before, pretty close. Also doing gardening and being with the land and so on here, which I find really helps me to be grounded and to digest all the different experiences I've had and lessons I've been exposed to and wonderful people I've met. So I find myself here just kind of digesting everything that happened and trying to integrate all those teachings and the opportunities that I've had, and trying to integrate that with who I am and my life here in this birth. So that's from me. So my pranams to Srila Gurudev and everything he's given me and is giving me, and pranams to all the devotees here, especially the hosts who've helped organize it, and really appreciate the opportunity.
Dandavats, Prabhu. You've got a lovely meditative voice. I'm sure you could use that for something.
Hope I didn't put anyone to sleep.
Well,
or if it's late, then maybe that's good.
But in a kind of a good way, not like in a sleepy way, but in a kind of a very, very calm way. You seem very Piscean to me. I'm getting this kind of beautiful Piscean energy from you. I like the way you talked about. I think you said something like, I'm not sure if you used the word floating or swimming in Gurudev's teachings, that we were all swimming in his teachings, how deep and how broad his teachings are, and how it's a kind of an ongoing integrative process. There's a really beautiful share, Prabhu, and one thing I really got from it is how important it's been for you to recognize the beauty in Gurudev's devotees. That's really been an important part of your journey, to make you feel like you're part of a sweet family, and to see how Gurudev actually appears or manifests actually through our behavior. It reminds me of a story, Dilip Prabhu. Some of you know Dilip. He's from London, and he's Indian born, but's lived in the UK since he was about 1. But his wife's father always lived in India, never came over to the West. Comes from a Brahmin background, and he's dead now, but he was very intellectually minded and came from that whole background of sort of cynicism about Indian gurus in general. He was just done with it, you know. But when he went to Gopinath Bhavan and saw all the ladies in Gopinath Bhavan, and then he saw Gurudev's pictures, he actually, for the first time in his life, did Dandavat Pranams to them, because he could see a guru that is so loved and emanates this kind of behavior through his disciples has to be the real thing. I think that's a really beautiful example of Gurudev's magic.
Yeah, definitely. I just mentioned, I remember the year after Srila Gurudev's departure, I was in Badger, So it was the first annual Disappearance Day festival of Srila Gurudev. And Kishori Mahaprabhu and Sudeva Didi were there, and they were doing the emceeing. And a lot of devotees came, young and old, and all different, natures, funny, serious, the whole range. And it was we were up and down and crying and laughing, and it was just intense, many hours each day. And my overall impression at the end of it was that really what every speaker had in a sense done the same thing, although they've spoken on a whole range of experiences with Srila Gurudev and teachings. Each one had come up and said, look, here's where Srila Gurudev is in my heart. Here's where he is for me. And to see devotees that way. I mean, I'm disagreements with devotees and different, decisions in life and so on. But I pray to be able to keep that vision, even if I'm like angry at a particular devotee, that, that Krishna's in their heart and Srila Gurudev's in their heart. And, I would hope to be seen in that way. So try to do that.
Everything becomes beautifully reconciled through Gurudev's heart. If we keep him in the center, everything can make sense, and we can give up our small resentments and envy. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for actually your connection was great. And,
that's good.
Yeah, we heard you really, really well. It sounds like a very idyllic, kind of rustic place you live. Very
it's both
conducive for bhakti.
Yeah, it's nice here.